a retention problem, which is a revenue problem, right? And from a sales lens, what is the close rate? So I always look at efficiency ratios when I look at data. So how well is marketing and sales aligned with, you look at marketing MQLs divided by SQLs. What is that percentage? How does that look? How is that trending over time? And then I also look at MQL versus close one. What is that trend? What is that percentage? How is that trending? And to me, when you look at MQL divided by close one, that aligns and tells a story about how great marketing is with its messaging and timing and those elements, and sales, that they're really lock and step, right? And that the higher the percentage, the better that engagement and the holy grail of marketing, right?
Welcome back to Marketing in the Raw. That is the podcast, and I am the host, Adam Helweh, and today's guest brings a rare blend of old school fundamentals and forward-looking strategy that every marketing leader should hear. Who are we talking to, Deanna?
That's right. Today we're joined by Tracy Wehringer. She's a fractional CMO and the founder of Moonshot Strategy. Tracy has been leading marketing at cybersecurity firms, billion-dollar financial organizations, and emerging tech startups. She's a Six Sigma trained, data-driven leader who is not afraid to roll up her sleeves, and she is bringing some sharp, very actionable insights to the table today. Something that stood out to me in your conversation was Tracy answering the question, what if your revenue slowdown isn't a sales problem or a messaging problem, but a timing problem that's buried in your data? Mind blown. She breaks down how she uses her CRM data and sales cycle analysis to identify some of those latency points and bottlenecks that your team might be missing too. So you're going to want to listen.
She has such a unique approach to things due to her background, and I'm excited that you get to listen to the conversation. So before we give it all away, everybody enjoy the conversation with Tracy. Tracy, Happy New Year. It's good to see you. How was your New Year this year?
Oh, wonderful. Do some end of the year reporting for some of our clients, and then putting together the strategy for 2025. What does Q1, Q2 look like? And just hyper excited for this year.
That's awesome. And so there's a lot to get to before we talk about what you're excited about for the year. I know a little bit about you, but I want to know more about you. Can you tell me, how did you get started in marketing? Were you one of the chosen ones, that it's just been in your DNA from the get-go, or what?
Adam, totally in my DNA. I'm so passionate about marketing. It's incredible. So actually started out real early in my career. My grandparents actually started a hardware store, retail store in Tottenville, Staten Island during the Depression, which is craziness, right? During the Depression, you start a business. And fast forward, my parents became owners of that business. And it was there that I cultivated. I was in high school, and I had a wonderful marketing teacher, business teacher in high school, who talked about the whole idea of, having the right message to the right audience, even back then, to get prospects into your store from a consumer side of the house. And I, dabbled into it when I was in high school a little bit. And then in college, I was really hyper-focused on going for marketing, business administration. And it was there that I understood more of the business-to-business world, and that's where I wanted to get into. I was very tech-savvy. I, like you, enjoy the tech end of it. And after college, just jumped right into segmentation, old school direct mail, showing my age. So I actually worked for a wonderful, wonderful business owner, Lee Kroll, and even after all these years, 30 years later, still talk to him, every once in a while on LinkedIn. And he was instrumental in teaching me segmentation and A/B testing, messaging, mapping, like any component on measurement, which was instrumental early in my career. But it's been a lifelong journey, and I absolutely love today the components that I could see the outcome of all the work that's done, from every attribute that you need to do, every touch point, funnel, lead acquisition, retention, like all of that together. And at my age and experience, it's incredible what we as marketers could do and see today. It's just wonderful.
Well, and going back to you said the hardware store, correct? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Going back to the hardware store and high school, because was that an elective class, or was that one?
Yes, it was elective class. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so was there anything that you did differently or that you got to experiment with after having taken that class? The fact that you were working in a business where you could potentially have some influence on what was going on?
No, that's a great question, Adam. Absolutely. So within that whole component of business and a family-owned business, what I was able to do is create, back then, direct mail pieces that would go out to new people that moved into the area. So, then really working with list management people, getting that list of, it was before the welcome wagon and all that on the consumer side, right? But gaining that understanding of who's moving in and making sure we were the first touch, because after time, it was a small little town, but it grew to 5 hardware stores in this little town.
Oh.
So it was highly competitive, and you wanted to be the first one in there. And the other element that I brought forward was the ability to have custom charging. So it was called Lang's Hardware at the time. And so we were able to do custom charging, and then really reaching out to the local community, championship and sponsoring the local Little League and all those type of elements to really be in the community. But yeah, so, the direct mail pieces in high school, I thought was like, hey, I'm pretty cool, doing these kinds of things. But yeah, and I learned, and still today, direct mail went kind of under the radar for the longest time. And now it's really picking up. I know some major global 50 brands that are not only have their nurture streams, all digital nurture streams fully baked, but from an account-based marketing, ABM lens, they're usually using dimensional mail pieces to create that personalization and that touch to help either close a deal or create that retention, lifetime value.
How did you bridge the gap now in your career from the hardware store days where you were just dipping your toes in the water and getting interested in marketing to now you've run marketing at multiple companies, you're a fractional CMO as well. Like, how do you go from that to that?
So obviously with college, but college only gets you so far. And then, like I said, my first role out of college was working in direct-to-mail marketing, which really helped support that growth and getting mentorship. Mentorship is really key. There's a lot of companies that don't enable that mentorship within the organization. And I'm a big fan, and through LinkedIn, there's so many different ways and different avenues to find who is that perfect mentor for you, whether it's for a short-term period or if you could find that mentor for a long period. And, you know, you pick up different pieces of learning of either what to do or what not to do based on different elements. And I'm not saying that my entire career has been rainbows and butterflies. You know, I've worked for some companies where they were just hyper toxic companies, and you knew right away that you know, this is not a long-term fit, and you know, you have to bounce. But picking up different things, like I remember this one woman that I worked with, Barbara Reed, who taught me the element of thank you notes, of being first to market, and first to get ahead of other competitors, especially in certain verticals where something new was coming out and she wanted to get ahead of it. When prospecting, she would handwrite notes. You know, obviously there was email and everything else, but she was really focused on the handwritten notes to say, hey, I know you're not thinking about this today, but put this in the back of your mind. This might be something that, you know, you might need in the next 3-6 months. And those notes brought in so much cultivated business for her. She was a salesperson, an account exec. And I think that, you know, like I said, you pick up little things along the way, those handwritten thank you notes. And now you see key people on LinkedIn showcasing their video of handwriting notes every quarter saying thank you, thank you, thank you. You know, it's funny, what's old has come back again.
Yeah, it's all come back. Just like fashion, I guess, right?
It is. Yeah.
Well, and so remind me of some of the organizations over the last few years that you've worked with, because you know, and some of the industries that they're in, to give people some context.
So over these several years, I worked in cybersecurity, huge cybersecurity, Orca Security, Orca Security, and then within finance, I worked with a couple brands I really can't say, but they're probably the global two.
Oh, wow.
But then there's, you know, SEI is another one, a multi-billion-dollar organization. They had different business units, and I helped facilitate a lot of the advisory with that. Digital Asset is another organization that I worked with, helped and supported lead management, content syndication, buying journeys, that sort of thing.
What's your favorite thing about working with companies like this? Because you talked about, you know, enjoying tech, and what you've named are a number of companies that technology definitely is either at the core, whether it's a cybersecurity company or it's probably adjacent inside what they do. What is it that you enjoy the most about working with those types of customers?
What I love about it is usually when I'm called in, there is a problem, right? They're not realizing revenue as fast as they thought. There might be some latency in the sales funnel. The uniqueness about my background is years ago, I went through a vast training on Six Sigma in our organization. So Monday through Thursday, I wore the corporate communication, the marketing, product marketing hat. But every Friday, there was a handful of us that got together in the organization and was taught Six Sigma, Green Belt, not from the lens of manufacturing and removing defects from process, but from being customer-centric, hyper customer viewed on removing defects from process that would create negativity or pain points between the company and the customer, like wrong billing, the SLA is not being followed, notifications based on outages, not getting to the right person, like all those things that could go wrong, you know.
Customer experience and sort of operational efficiency in the customer experience.
100%. Yes.
And just to remind folks, like what Six Sigma is, it's a known training course, right? Go ahead.
Yes, it's a quality training process that looks at processes, usually automated processes, not manual, that looks at that and mitigates any defects, anything that goes wrong in that process. And the whole theory is to get to, was it like 1.76 errors per million. So that's 6 nines of quality. When people have the nines of quality, it's really looking at mitigating any of those issues that would be paid for a customer.
What motivated you to do that training?
So I was really excited because I was handpicked by the CEO, the chairman of the board. They actually picked 5 people out of 350 to be part of this whole training process. And I think it's because I was always the one that kind of raised my hands on what's next, what can I learn, And in that organization, I went from, marketing manager to corporate communications to Marcom to investor relations. I actually wrote the letter to shareholders as a ghost writer for the chairman of the board, which, mid-career, I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. So, yeah, for a public company back then, so, yeah.
Well, and so you there's a little bit of a theme here, right? You talked about being recognized as somebody who was open to new things, was willing to learn, was eager to absorb new ideas and apply them. It sounds like obviously as well. But you talked about obviously how you've already, I think, shared with me 3, mentors / people that had impact, and I would imagine you probably could name another 10 if I were to ask
Absolutely.
you, because
100%.
You had a willingness to. Your teacher back in high school, then you talked about Barbara Reed, I think.
Barbara Reed, yep. Mm-hmm.
Barbara Reed, and then you talked about, I don't know if it was Sam or maybe I got the name
Kroll.
wrong.
Yeah.
Lee,
Mm-hmm.
okay,
Lee,
all
yeah.
right.
No, that's
I was
fine.
trying to see if I could memorize all the names, but Lee as well. So you named all those people. It seems to be a theme that, it doesn't matter what level you are in the business. It doesn't matter how big the businesses are. There's a willingness there to sort of absorb ideas and new things from all directions. And especially in marketing, there's a lot of opportunities to apply those things.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? Am I tracking correctly?
Absolutely. And the whole thing is building those relationships, right? Like I said, if it's just for 6 months or something, or it could be a lifetime. Like I'm still talking to people that I worked with 25 years ago, and bouncing off ideas. And you create those relationships as you move through your experience, your work journey. And, even today I have people that I tap into, especially with AI and, you and I had a great conversation just a few months ago, and here I am today. But, there's some things. I'm actually going for my DBA, my doctorate in business administration.
That's right.
And I have to write this thesis. And when you're writing a thesis, there's 2 pillars that you could go. You could either come up with, there has to be a problem that you're going to fix in your industry or your vertical. I mean, in your
There's no problems in marketing. There's no problems to solve in marketing at all.
Or coming up with a problem solved or a new methodology.
Okay.
So I won't share it right now but I am coming up with some, I think, pretty cool methodology that might be a little different than ABM and some of these things that are out there that I do want to bounce off of you, just because of the great conversation we had when we first met, and I value your insight, your experience, and it's somebody that, I feel would give great insight if my idea is worth bringing to market with writing or whatever. So,
I appreciate you thinking of me with that. I'm excited, as you know, when you were mentioning it and saying you couldn't share it just yet, and I was like, darn. And then knowing that I might be one of the few folks that gets to see it early, I was like, score.
Yeah.
Well, and so given that attitude of learning and you know, being open to these mentors and the advice of others and so on, how has that impacted your leadership style?
Excellent question. So I worked for an organization that did not have any type of mentorship. And I'm, like I said, I'm a huge fan with making sure that people knew fresh out of college, has some sort of mentorship. So I pitched it to the CEO saying, I know this is out of marketing, it's usually an HR function. I said, but how do you feel if I take ownership of this? And there's plenty of platforms out there. It's almost like Tinder or one of these, you know, Match.com or whatever. But you match a mentor to a mentee. It's anonymous through the organization. Whoever wants to sign up, raise their hand. They get access to it. They put in their bio, professional bio. And so the system goes through based on your likes, dislikes, whatever. You don't know who the people are. And all of a sudden they match you. And that experience was wonderful. Like, we had a kickoff meeting once everybody was matched, a big banquet, like, hey, rah, rah, rah. And then the organization enabled everybody to meet without putting time off or anything. It was like if they met after hours or they wanted to go to lunch or whatever, that time was so valuable. And that, you know, even helped my leadership ability to understand how much that was valued in the organization. And just getting feedback from the team I want to say 60 people were in that whole program, the first one, and then it expanded from there. And the feedback was just phenomenal, you know, that both parties got. Both people were learning in that relationship, you know, that because the CFO wanted to be part of it, and because it was anonymous, he got placed with a marketing intern. So it was like two people that would never meet in their normal day-to-day, and it opened up his eyes to what is needed in the organization from a new hire and what they're looking for career growth. And, you know, she got in, you know, here's the CFO who would probably never talk to her in a day-to-day, and now she could meet him for lunch or meet him for dinner, or, you know, that sort of thing. So, but from a leadership lens, that kind of element is incredible.
That's awesome. So let's reflect on the last year a little bit. What do you think was the biggest challenge of 2024 for you as a marketer?
I would definitely have to say, like you and I were talking about prior to this call, is the fact that many companies were, I won't say hesitant, or pulled back a little bit, waiting for, you know, what's going to come of the election, interest rates, what I felt the last half of the year is the fact that a lot of companies were not hitting the gas pedal. They were definitely pulling back.
That's a good way of saying it, yeah.
Yeah. So I felt that, and I felt that a lot of some of the clients are interested in AI. They want to learn more about what is the right model of AI, either the large language model or, you know, what are the platforms, what are the right pieces of artificial intelligence that's out there that would fit well to create efficiencies in their business model, create scale as needed, maybe even remove headcount, like, you know, those kinds of. So gaining that understanding. They're still learning, and they want to learn what is considered best practices right now based on their vertical, their business model, how quickly they're looking to scale, all those types of elements. And so it's more of education right now, understanding, so I would say that's been this past year.
A lot of change going on, or a lot of potential variables that people were kind of waiting to see where the dust settled for some of them. And we're still not going to see the dust settle for a lot of this technology side of things, but at least, right, the election's over. We're starting to get some signals of how that's going to impact people's budgets and
Correct.
buying of tools and technology and all that sort of stuff. Very, very cool. Now, where do you what's your favorite types of problems to solve in the work that you do?
I would say revenue problems, right? So from a marketing, sales, customer success lens, either what is a retention problem, which is a revenue problem, right? And from a sales lens, what is the close rate? So I always look at efficiency ratios when I look at data. So how well is marketing and sales aligned with, you look at marketing MQLs divided by SQLs. What is that percentage? How does that look? How is that trending over time? And then I also look at MQL versus close won. What is that trend? What is that percentage? How is that trending? And to me, when you look at MQL divided by close won, that aligns and tells a story about how great marketing is with its messaging and timing and those elements, and sales, that they're really lock and step, right? And that the higher the percentage, the better that engagement and the holy grail of marketing, right? It's really the holy grail of marketing. And there's so many other KPIs out there, but when you really want to look at the integration between marketing and sales and how well they are doing, it really is those hit ratios, those efficiency ratios, and trending over time.
Is that usually
Yep.
something you're looking at first and foremost in order to understand, like, all those different ones, not just the one you talked about, but all those different ones, kind of immediately going, can we measure them? What are they? And then from there, kind of using that as a stepping stone towards digging in and trying to understand, like, the Six Sigma comes out of you, and you're looking at the efficiencies of things there, and then just paying attention to that on a regular basis, like a monthly basis, quarterly basis.
Monthly, yeah, because you want to be able to pivot, you want to be able to, bring in different messaging, and so obviously when I look at these engagements, I dig into the data first. It's all about those KPIs, those metrics, but I might not look at their dashboards right away. I look at the data, and I'm able to look at the data and understand where they are. If it's their CRM system, I start with, and then I look at other data elements, right? Their Google Analytics, and some of the clients do have Tableau and the different dashboards that are set up and pulling data from different silos and that sort of thing, but. And in the sales, the other element I look at from a sales lens too is understanding the buyer's journey, right? And then understanding what is the expected cycle time of prospects going through the sales stages. Like what does that cycle time look like on average, right? And then where are those outliers that we could fix, right? So is there a latency? Is there latency between 40 and 50%? Or do people go quiet after 60%? Like, what are those issues that is a barrier to revenue? So you're looking at creating that speed to revenue, that velocity, right? That's my word of the year, 2025, is how to build that velocity. And some of the clients that I talk to, they feel that marketing stops at top mid-funnel, but marketing should continue. What is
Yeah,
that
there's a lot you can do
continuation
behind
of
the scenes,
content?
right?
Yeah,
To
every bit.
continue to support and grease the wheels and provide information
Every
and
bit.
all that. And it sounds like that probably is, you can look at that in a very similar fashion to how you look at the customer, the customer experience side that you were describing before, right? Looking at those inefficiencies and in the experience there. What's like one of the most common like causes for poor numbers in those areas you described? If you just pick one, maybe.
So I would definitely say the wrong pieces of content are being sent at that time. The wrong messaging. I've seen where it's more of a horizontal approach and really not. This day and age, we have to be personalized. If we're not personalized, we're missing the boat completely. And it's not one size fits all or one size fits most. It's got to be hyper strategic, hyper personalized, as best as the company could be, right? So, if you're not vertically aligned in your content, you're missing the boat.
What is Tracy most excited about in 2025? Maybe velocity is is all behind whatever that is, but as a marketer, what are you most excited about, and how is that influencing how the decisions that you're making on behalf of the marketing teams that you're working with?
Well, obviously, with my background, I'm tech savvy, and the whole testing of different AI tools that are coming to market. I read 2 major newsletters that are coming out every morning with new tools, who's buying who, from M&A lens, how much money folks are getting from VCs or private equity. And so I get those 2 newsletters every morning, and I'm looking at those new tools that are coming to market. I get on their wait lists because a lot of them, they're smart. They get out of their marketing and they pre-launch and get their wait list ready for when they really come to market, right?
Yeah.
So, but hyper excited, just so excited about all these new tools and being able to test them, being able to see what their value that they bring to the market. And how it will impact not only me and my business, but clients' business, future clients' business, so.
I think we're a lot alike in that where you just described, it's a little bit of a secret weapon, which is not just paying attention to when the tools that you're using are available and with AI, with some AI features, but I love to pay attention to the business side of it and understand, okay, what are the companies that are, investing into OpenAI or Anthropic or any of these other tools, or when you start to pay attention to that, you understand okay, that one is going to have some staying power. It may not be the best fit right now, or may not have the best tool, but when you understand the business side of it enough, that it has some backing to kind of figure things out, as technology does, especially software, right? It can change on a dime what's capable of doing, and even hardware these days, due to being updatable AI APIs and all that sort of stuff, has a lot of opportunity. So that's interesting to hear how you use that to kind of inform your lens as you're looking at these tools from a marketing, leadership, and practitioner standpoint.
Very true. Yeah.
As we wrap up here, I want to give you the chance to the final question to ask me, if you would like. What would be a question you'd like to ask me to wrap things up today?
No, that's a great question. Let's see, Adam, from your lens, what are you excited about for 2025?
I think there's what I'm excited about from the whole market and what I'm excited about for us as a company, and there's a little bit of overlap, but I do think this does become a year where we start to see the path through the trees of all that's going on with AI a bit more. where there's so much promise for it. So there's still a long way to go from, I think, where the final form will be for AI in general. But I think that there's a bit more of a path, because as the tools kind of came out, they came out of nowhere. At first, ChatGPT, although OpenAI was around for a long time, and these tools were kind of behind the scenes for a while, they were really being used by developers and things like that more than the average person. And now this has become mainstream for sure. And so I think that we have an eagerness of adoption. We have an eagerness of people to learn how this matters to them, which I'm excited to get behind and help people with. And then in addition to that, there's actually a bit of a path, like I said, forming between the trees that kind of allows people to keep up with all those changes in a way that matters to them. Where I think before everybody was just like, oh, these are really cool, but oh shoot, this is going to suddenly take my job. And I think there's actually more of a dual lane happening than people realize, of how human beings can be augmented by these things and continue to walk together. But in doing so, they have to be like you. They have to be willing to learn. They have to be willing to kind of evolve their approach and continue to be learners. For the folks that want to sit on their laurels and just kind of do their job for the next 5 years, 10 years, or whatever, that's going to be one of the most challenging things for them. So I'm most excited about seeing that path and helping folks with that path a bit more.
Perfect. No, that's great. It really is.
Tracy, how can people stalk you and get to know you better and connect with you?
So Moonshot Strategy, it's moonshot-strategy.com. And I also have a newsletter on LinkedIn called Revenue Accelerator. So I write probably every 2 weeks. I just actually wrote an article on Ask Engine Optimization that people could check out. It's a little different than search engine. And if you've been searching on Google, you'll see different ways that Google is rendering those answers. So, definitely check me out.
I'm going to check you out. So, Tracy, I'm excited to receive the brilliance that you will be sharing, hopefully, with me soon in regards to your project,
My doctorate,
your doctorate. And I can't thank you enough for joining me today.
No, this was wonderful. Thank you, Adam. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
You too.